Alright, g'day guys and welcome back to another Obsidian video. Today we're going to be having a look at something that is not a tutorial. I wanted to show you guys what's happening behind the scenes with Obsidian bases. And for anyone who's not aware, you can sign up as an Obsidian insider. You can actually purchase an extra license that will allow you to basically get access to early releases within the tool. If you go to obsidian.md and go to pricing, you scroll down here and you can actually see they have a catalyst license for $25 US. All right. What that does is that gives you a special badge that gives you access to the early builds, right? And what's happened this week is that something exciting has happened. There's been a release into the Obsidian Insider channel from Liam, one of the obviously the core developers, to say, hey, I'm here to blow your mind, frankly. All right, and if we have a look at this, we can see they've added some cool stuff. So obviously bases is that functionality that kind of replicates what DataView could do for us, right? It lets us parse our vault for notes that meet specific requirements and show tables of those results. Well, now we can group those results, right? So you can return the results in groups. There's summaries that have been added. That's fantastic. There's a new list view. Instead of a table view, it actually shows it in a list, which is pretty cool. But really, the thing that's super exciting is they've released the Bases API. Now, for anyone who's not technical, think of the API as an enabler for the developers to start creating their own plugins for Obsidian bases. Okay? What you're about to see happen in Obsidian is an explosion of functionality, right, for bases. Because now all of the community developers are going to be able to actually come along and start creating their own things. Okay, and this is already happening. Since the release of the API, we've already seen a calendar plugin come out for bases, and that in itself is exciting. All right, I think we're going to see the community come along and just start throwing things at this, going, "Oh, I've added this cool thing, I've added that cool thing." But let's focus on the next part of this, which is the developers. Well, one of the key developers, I think it's actually Liam. I'm not 100% sure of this, but is actually a really high user of Leaflet in his own personal notes. Okay, so when this API came out, they obviously sat down and said, "Oh, we need to showcase how this thing can be used, show you how cool it is." So what did they do? They made a Maps plugin. They added Pinnable Map functionality to Obsidian bases. Mind blowing! Like, so happy to see it happen. So new Maps plugin lets you visualize your base entries on a map. All right, so it's installable from the community plugins directory. You won't be able to get access to it until it's released, obviously, unless you are an insider. If you are an insider, you can absolutely go in and search for this thing and it'll come up. But Pinnable Maps, guys, in bases. All right, check this out. Okay, this is not Leaflet. Just to be clear, this is bases. Okay, and as you can see here, I've got a cards view. I've got a list view. Is this a list? I think it might actually be a table view. We've got the new one, which is lists. All right, so you can display a list of things as well. You can see I'm grouping some of these things in this result, so that's obviously a possibility. But more importantly, map view. Map view. Wow. And as you can see, it looks pretty damn good. Okay, so what have we got? We've got the ability to have a map. We can obviously move that map around, we can zoom in, we can zoom out, we can put pins on the map, we can click the pins to go through to the linked note, so that's cool. But yeah, we have Pinnable Maps in bases, and technically while it isn't an official part of the tool, like this isn't part of the core foundation, it has been made by the developers, right? So it's kind of semi-official. I got to admit, I wish they would add it to the core program. I think that would be a fantastic add. You can also do this where you can hold right mouse button and move it around. You could put a spaceship on here and you could spin it for no other reason other than you should be able to spin spaceships in space. Yeah, there you go. So let's have a little bit of a deeper look at this, right, and see what this tool can actually do for us. All right, so let's start with just a bit of an explanation that what you're looking at here is not the official Maps plugin, okay? This is not the released version. What's happened is when they've created the original plugin, it came out with functionality in here that is basically designed to work with what they call a tile server. All right, so a map server, an online hosted repository of maps. And as you can see here, we've got the world map. We can zoom in, we can zoom out. That is tiles functionality. All right, and people usually use a tile server to achieve this sort of level of zoom in and zoom out, right? It's not one image like we use usually in a fantasy capacity. It's hundreds of, if not thousands of images, and as you zoom in, it changes depending on the zoom level as you go in and gives you more levels of visibility. So basically, like, that was there, and there was no ability for us to actually add our own images. All right, we couldn't actually link it. So what happened is that the Obsidian community started chatting. Sig actually posted a message or an issue, sorry, into the official GitHub for the new Maps plugin and said, hey, can you add this functionality? Bag of Tips and I, we kind of maybe rallied our troops. Had nothing to do with it, I swear, but we said, hey guys, if you want this functionality, maybe go and post on the issues thread that was made by Sig to say, hey, we want to be able to do this. And it got so many reactions and so many comments that the developers have locked the comments because they said they're just getting annoyed with all of the notifications that keep spamming them. So well done, guys. The Obsidian devs officially know that we are very interested in map support and that we like what they're doing, and that we'd like to have a bit of extra functionality in there. So that happened. But beyond that, some community members have obviously come together and gone, hey, you know, we could actually probably add this functionality ourselves. And there's a conversation going in the Obsidian TTRPG Discord right now about this with one of the developers who's basically already submitted a push request or a pull request, I don't know what you call it, to the GitHub site that's adding the functionality to work with local images. So what you're seeing now is not the official out-of-the-box Maps plugin. Okay, what I've done is I've gone to the GitHub, found the pull request, basically extracted the changes from that, merged it into the plugin, and then built the plugin, which is a technical concept, right? It's a technical process that not everyone's going to want to even learn how to do. So this that I'm about to show you is very much not available, okay, for the standard user. This is not released functionality. But it's so cool. I wanted to show you what the future could look like. Okay, so just to be clear. So we've got map view. Obviously, we've got the ability to add pins. And what's basically happened is that he's released the ability for us to come in and make a change to the background section here, which is add the local image. Yeah, I'm going to walk you through now the plugin. Okay, so if you want it, you can go settings, check for updates. No, don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. I'm not going to click on. If I click update right now, I will override the changes that I've made. So I'm actually going to not allow that to happen because that would be devastating for this video. Sorry, go browse. Go maps. Type maps, and now we have Maps by Obsidian. Adds a map layout to bases. Okay, so you can come through and you can add that functionality and away you go. All right, now, if we go to Red Larch, here's an example map that I've made. All right, anyone who's run some of the Wizards of the Coast campaigns might recognize this map. One of Mike Schlee's beautiful maps of Red Larch here. But let's go through the plugin. So it's installed. It basically, in bases, adds the ability to go add view, and we can name it the view, and we can pick from the type of view that we want. Okay, so table cards, we've been through those before. List is new. Map is added by the plugin. Okay, so we'll go back to Red Larch. We drop this down and expand out on here. We've got that. We've got the embed height. That determines how much of this is actually visible. So we can set it right around that size for the map. We go to display. Center coordinates. This is quite simple. You can actually just right click on the map, go copy coordinates, come in here and go Red Larch, display, and copy those coordinates in there, and that's now where the default center of the map is. So that's really nice and easy. Default zoom. All right, so we can actually change the zoom level. All right, which changes how far in and out it's zooming. There's also the ability to set the min and max zoom levels. All right, so you can actually determine what the minimum set is going to be like if you want. Same thing that we do with leaflet, right? Same concept. So that's all pretty basic functionality. And then you've got a section here for markers. Now, markers is where you can actually go into a note and you have a property for coordinates, a property for icon, and a property for icon color. So what am I talking about here? If we come into this note here, we'll go into source mode, just so you can see it. Properties are obviously always at the top of a note, right? And it's always started with a dash, dash, dash and ended with a dash, dash, dash. Anything in between is going to be basically defined as properties. So we've got a coordinates, fat finger, don't hold me accountable, should be coordinates. All right, and then behind that I've got the coordinates, X and Y, basically. And you'll see how I use those in a minute. Then we've got an icon property and the name of the icon. Again, we'll show you that in detail. And then icon color, and then a code or a hex code for the color. Now, something that I did learn, and I'll just throw this in quickly. Icon is used by the Pixel Banners plugin a lot, okay? And the Pixel Banners plugin has some CSS that actually will hide any properties that start with icon. So if you've got Pixel's Banner installed, it will actually go ahead and make that really hard to see. So for the purpose of this video, I'm going to hide this. To make it easier for you, the trick would be don't call your properties that you're going to use with this icon, all right? Because as soon as you have icon, if you're using Pixel Banners, it will hide it, okay? So it's a bit of a painful, just conflict between the two plugins going on. You might like that. You might like it. Anyway, I've turned it off for now for the sake of this video. So we've got coordinates, icon, icon color. Okay, they're the three properties. You can call those properties whatever you like, but you need to make sure that every note, well, not every note, but you need to make sure that the notes that are going to be used in the base that you're making all use the same properties. So what I would do is create a template for a map note or a note pin note or something that has these already in there, right? And then I'd leave it. I'm starting to see the benefit of having an image property in all of my notes as well for the cards view. Okay, that's kind of different, but also useful. If we come here, what I'm talking about there is when I've got a cards view, this is the image property feeding through, so that's quite nice. But yeah, so you got three properties for a pin. And the idea is you create a note, you fill those properties in, and then that will basically allow that to display. So if we have a look here, what we're going to do, what do we got? We got new pin. I'm going to make a copy of the new pin note. All right. Oh, I've got caps lock on. So my new place. This is my note that I'm going to use to place somewhere on this map. All right. So my new note. And if I right click here, the little menu comes up and we've got copy coordinates. I'm going to copy those coordinates. All right. And then my new note, I'm going to paste the coordinates in there. Okay, so nice and easy. We now have a new pin. That's how quick it is, right? Instant. We have a new pin that basically is wherever I've defined that. So that was nice and easy to do. We've got a frowny face there. All right, we got angry. What if we change that to happy? Oh, happy is not a code. Now, what I'm doing there, just so you understand it, is I've gone over to the Maps plugin GitHub. I've had a read through the README. And down here it says icons. You can add icons from Obsidian's built-in list side library. All right, so you click that. That takes you to here. It has all of these different sort of icons that you can use that are built into the tool. All right, so if I come down here, I'm going to grab the footprints. I'll copy that little bit of text. We'll go back to Obsidian. We'll go to my new place and we'll change happy to footprints. And if we now go back to our bases view, we now have a footprint pin. Okay, so really nice and easy. The other one is that there's a color there for the pin. So if we click on it, we'll see FF0000, that is red. Okay, but if we want this pin to be blue, we can grab hashtag 0000FF and we can copy that. We'll go into my new place. We'll paste that in there. And now we come back here and the icon is blue. Now those hex codes, they're common color codes, right? You can go onto Google and just Google that and you'll find heaps of them. There's also, I think, colors here. So it supports RGB, it supports hex, or you can do variable colors like dash 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 color dash blue. Okay, so lots of options there on how to set the color. Very easy. I probably wouldn't go overboard on the color. Like if I'm doing it myself, I'll probably have 3 or 4 colors maybe that I use, and keep it to that. But there you go. So that's the process for creating a new pin. All right, it's all based on notes. You make the note, you right click where you want the pin to go, you copy that into the coordinates, and then you change the icon and the icon color, and it should basically display on the map. And that's all there is really to it, right? That's lovely. All right, next let's have a look, I think, at how you can set this up for multiple maps. Okay, so multiple maps. The thing about Leaflet is it used to have the button up the top right that allowed you to sort of select your layer. But one of the things that is a core feature of bases is this idea that you can have multiple views in a single base. So what this means is already I can actually have a view for the Forgotten Realms. I can have a view for Red Larch. I could have a view for a dungeon. Okay, all built into the same base. That's absolutely possible. Something to consider though, if we go to Red Larch, is that it's displaying the pins of any notes that are filtered into the view. So if I was to remove that filter, I will see all of the pins for all of the notes that are visible to that base, which means all of the notes in my vault. So what I've got to do is I've created a new view, and then in that view, I go to filter and I go where folder is Red Larch. So you can see here I've made a scratch notes, bases map test, Red Larch. I've made a folder, and what I'm doing is I'm making one note per pin in their own folder so that I can then limit the view really easily to that. Now there's lots of other ways you could do this. You might have a tag on your note that says this is this map, right? So I could have like the Red Larch tag, for example, or map name. Maybe I do it like this, right? I go map name and I go Red Larch, right? If I go into edit mode, or sorry, source mode, right? And I copy that into just a few other notes just for an example. All right, now that I come back here, I could change this filter so it's not based on the folder where property, no, where map name is Red Larch. Okay, so now we only see the 3 that are Red Larch. So there's lots of ways you can sort of minimize the pins that are visible on a map, right? And you might have a layer. You might have Red Larch layer 1, right? If it's a dungeon with 10 layers for the dungeon, you might have a different unique name for each one of those. You know, like there's quite power there. You can even use or statements, right? Where it says like, show me this or that, depending on what you're doing. So I don't know, cool things. Another thing that I found that you can do is basically click these properties. All right, and when you do that, that's basically impacting what you're going to see over here. So if you had like maybe a property called map description or pin description, you could have a little bit of text that's then visible. It doesn't show the whole preview of the note like we're used to seeing with Leaflet. All right, you've got to click through it and then you can see the content. So that's another thing as well. But yeah, so that's obviously very sort of easy functionality right there and sort of how that's doing. Now you've got set default center point, set default zoom on the right menu. That's for obviously setting the defaults in the plugin. You like zoom in and go, oh, I like that. You set it as the default and off you go. Nice and simple. All right, so we've got filters. That's how you display the pins for the multiple maps. And you kind of have to think about this in a way where, you know, you're going to have to create a way to have a limitation of the pins on the maps, right? That's going to be a thing. And just to think out loudly about this, like I think one thing that Leaflet's got right is that you can have a map and you can have multiple headings within a single note and you can link pins to headings with Leaflet. I can't see a way to do that with this. Okay, this is literally going one pin to one note. Now that sounds great. Like, I think for most things that will work. Like a regional map where you've got a note per building, world map, a note per city, like that works. Where I think that's going to probably be a little bit different is dungeons. Dungeons, sometimes you get like these little small rooms, right, where sometimes there's nothing in there. What you would have to do with this plugin the way it is right now is have one map per pin, right? So you'd have to have a note, right, for each room. And that room might just be, this is an empty closet, there's nothing here, right? A little line of text. And for me, I kind of like, we went away from that concept of having a note per pin with Realmworks back in the day when we were using it, because it got quite a burden to have that many notes in your vault. I quite like having a chapter for a dungeon with every room in that note, because then I can start reading top to bottom, right? I can read the content just like I would in a book. I don't have to jump back and forth between lots and lots of notes. So I feel like it's not going to work great for dungeons at this time, unless they can find a way to add pins to parts of notes, which certainly might come, right? Like, I think that would be exciting. It just means it's kind of stepping away from that core functionality of how Bases works, right? Like, the entire point of this is Bases displays things in a view based on the filtered notes that it sees, right? So all of these are unique notes that basically comes up. Now, something important that I found is that when you've got two notes with the exact same name, it will only show you the pin of one note at this current time. And I have raised a bug on the GitHub site for that. So every note needs to have a unique name, regardless of the fact if they're in a different folder or not. So that's obviously a current bug. But yeah, that's kind of my thoughts around that, right? Like, I think it's really strong. I do. I could see myself using this. I like that it's simple, it's easy to use. You don't have to calculate your bounds anymore, right? To add a new map, you're literally coming down here, you're expanding this out, you're going background, and you're pasting in the relatively location of an image. Now, by that, what I mean you put your map somewhere in your vault, all right? You just paste it into a node or whatever. Then you right click and you go copy relative path. Right, and then you come to dungeon, you come to your bases, you find the view that you want to do, you go to background and you paste it in, and that changes the note. Okay, so nice and easy. Then you would obviously set up your markers, so your coordinates, your icon color. All right, so you come along, you do that, you're done. You might change your zoom levels. All right, depending on how you feel, you might change your embed height, depending on what you want to see. All right, but it's really easy to set up. And I think that's something where we have room for improvement with Obsidian, right? Leaflet is a fantastic plugin, but you need to work the syntax. And Obsidian Leaflet has some advanced functionality, like the ability to measure distance, for example, which I know a lot of us love, right? There's a whole group of people out there that just cannot stand the idea of having to measure pixels in order to calculate the bounds to get that working, right? There's a whole bunch of people that have never even figured out how to do that, regardless of how many tutorials we've made and the ability to walk people through it. They struggle with that calculation, right? So anything we can do to make this easier. I mean, I'd love to see, for example, expanding this out, have a button here for browse that lets you pick the map, and say we were to add the functionality back in for measurement, like it should automatically figure out the X and Y of the map, so it can figure out the mass, and maybe a functionality that says, calculate measurement, right? Where you actually like come over here and you click on the map and you, highlight the measurement guide. I don't know. There's got to be an easier way to make this tool as easy as possible for new people, so that they don't need to do any maths and they don't need to copy the tool into something like GIMP to measure the amount of pixels between 2 points to figure out the distance. But at the same time, for anyone nodding and going, yep, it's too hard, like, what other tool out there do you know that lets you actually do measurements of distance in the map? Like, for that functionality to work, you have to find a way to tell the tool how much distance exists between 2 points, right? It's the only way. So I see both sides of this coin. I'd like it to be easier, but I understand that the requirement to do that needs to exist. But anyway, that's pretty much it, right? Like, we've got this cool functionality that gives us what we need. We've got the ability to add pins. It's easy. It's clean. It's got the ability to drag stuff, which is going to be distracting as hell. There's room for improvement, but the same developer who's done this has already said he's going to start afresh and create his own maps plugin, and he seems quite excited to do that. So he's already tapping away at his keyboard to have a look at that. Yeah, I'm just excited about what comes next, guys. Like, this API that they've released for bases, if this is the first thing they've done with it, like, my mind's already blown. Start to think what could come next, right? Calendarium for bases, right? Fantasy calendar that basically listens to all your notes and displays it in a calendar view in here. That's going to be possible. It's going to require someone who knows what they're doing to develop it, right? Because the configuration behind fantasy calendars with all the things you guys create is just insane. Like, moon cycles and weather cycles, like, you guys are nuts. It's going to take someone a fair chunk of effort to put that together, I think. Timelines, I think, will be something that happens very quickly. I don't see why that wouldn't exist, right? That's going to be such an easy win for us. Someone will just come along and be like, yep, I've added in timelines, right? And that will be just brilliant, I think. An easy win. And, like, what else could there be? Like, I know they're going to work on Kanbans. That's going to be a thing. So whether or not you'll be able to pick them up and drag them, for example, I'm sure they'll add that functionality in. I did see an issue raised where they said, oh, can we make it so we can right-click, add pin, and have it create a new note? And the developers have said, yes, they want to add that, but it's going to have to come with a future Obsidian update. So already that's exciting, right? Like, that would make this even easier to use. Instead of having to copy coordinates, go back to your note, paste in the coordinates. That'd be a better workflow. Yeah, I just blown away. So happy with what this is, and so excited to see what comes next, guys. Like, I think what comes next from here could be amazing. So anyway, there we go. That has been Maps View for Obsidian bases with some hacked in changes from the TTRPG community. Again, this is not a release plugin. The changes that I'm showing you here are very much in development. They're not available. I had to build this myself using command prompts, right? Like, yeah. Just in case you're trying to find this video at this point, all right? This is not a tutorial. This is me showing you what they're doing behind the scenes, okay? So anyway, let's leave it there. I want to say a huge shout out to all of my supporters. Thank you so much for keeping me going. We continue to see a mind-blowing amount of people that are coming through this tool. And I think what we're showing you right here is a step in the direction of making this an even bigger tool, because what this stands to do is make it easier for new people to get started with the tool. Now, if you are new to the tool, please do come along here to obsidianttrpgtutorials.com. All right, this is my website. This is where I host all of my things. Obviously, I've got the YouTube channel, but in here is where I'm basically doing structured content and trying to guide you in the pathway of how to get started with this tool. The getting started, for example, is there for brand new guys to learn how to do the absolute basics. Please don't dive into the deep end before you learn how to walk, guys. Otherwise, you will just end up drowning. It's how this tool works. Okay? But if you would like to join the community, Obsidian TTRPG Community Discord, click this link, come and join us. All right? We have thousands of users that are using this tool every day in here, sharing tips and tutorials, sharing notes and cool things that they've made. So there's a lot for you to benefit from. Come and join us. All right? I think you'll get an absolute great time out of there. So anyway, that's all from me for now. Enjoy your day. I will speak to you on the socials. Enjoy.